least two merchant vessels have said they've been hit by gunfire this Saturday as they attempted to cross the Strait of Hormuz in the Persian Gulf. Those attacks were reported soon after the Iranian army said the Strait of Hormuz, the crucial shipping lane effectively blockaded by Iran since the start of the war, was now closed once again. Less than 20 hours ago, Iran had announced the strait would remain open for the remainder of the temporary ceasefire deal between the US and Iran, with reports that the two countries had jointly begun demining the area. Iran's deputy foreign minister this Saturday saying that the US cannot impose its will by continuing to block Iranian ports. Well, for more, we can cross now to Tehran to speak with our correspondent Reza Sayah. Reza, the Strait of Hormuz was open for less than 20 hours. Iran saying it's now closed once again. Why is this, Reza?
Yeah, restrictions are back on again, according to Iranian authorities. Nothing over the past 47 years between Washington and Tehran has come easy, and now we're seeing that reality with today's developments. One day after Tehran announced that the Strait of Hormuz was once again open to all commercial vessels, in line with the ceasefire agreement in Washington, the Revolutionary Guard releasing a statement saying restrictions are back in place once again to all vessels, essentially taking conditions back to when there was fighting between Tehran and Washington, back to before the ceasefire agreement. The Revolutionary Guard saying they made this move in a response to the U.S. failing to lift its naval blockade, blocking ships coming to Iranian ports. So the impression here is that Washington understood or claimed that the ceasefire agreement included an unconditional opening of the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. Iran is saying no, it was conditional, and one of the conditions was the U.S. Navy lifting its blockade. Today's development speaks to the fragility and the uncertainty surrounding this impasse over the Strait of Hormuz. And it also speaks to the economic dimension of this conflict. Remember, the Strait of Hormuz is a critical waterway through which 20% of the world's oil passes through. When the U.S. and Israel attacked Iran on February 28th, Iran essentially took control over the Strait of Hormuz, waging an economic war against the U.S., making U.S. hostilities painful for the U.S. economy. Over the past couple of days, seemingly there was some optimism that the two sides had reached a ceasefire agreement with which the Strait of Hormuz would be open. But again, today, the Revolutionary Guard announcing that restrictions are back in place. And that's where things stand as we look towards the coming days to see if these two sides will negotiate once again in Islamabad.
Well, indeed, just how major a setback is this for ceasefire talks between Iran and the US, do we think?
It's certainly a setback. It doesn't bode well for negotiations, and it speaks to the complexities, but depends what the communication is in the coming hours, in the coming days. There are reports out of Washington that there may be talks back in Islamabad on Monday. Iranian officials have not commented on those reports. But the impression is that they're going to continue talking, whether indirectly or in Islamabad. However, with these talks, there's still a lot of impasses, a lot of issues to be worked out. One of them, obviously, is the Strait of Hormuz. You had U.S. President Donald Trump claiming on social media that Iran had agreed to ship out all of its highly enriched uranium. Iran has said that is not the case. And then you have the issue of uranium enrichment itself. Will there be an agreement by Iran for a moratorium or for a temporary freeze of their uranium enrichment? And then you have the issues of Iran's proxies, the missile programs, Iran's wish for U.S. forces to leave the region. So many, many issues to work out. And one of them is the Strait of Hormuz.
Reza Sayah in Tehran, thank you very much.